6. The next Wednesday evening started quite well. Mr. McGill was on his 2 till 10 shift, so there was only Chaz and his mum for tea. But Cousin Gordon called, on leave again, bright and brass in Air Force blue. He was carrying his rifle, because he had to be ready to defend Britain against invasion at any time. And because Aunt Rose said she wouldn't have the great greasy murderous thing round her house while he was out. He was just letting Chaz play with it, with clips of dummy bullets, when the siren went. "Get down the shelter, you two, while I put this sausage and chips onto plates. This is the one meal Hitler's not spoiling." It was nearly as good as a picnic. Scrambling down into the Anderson with knives and forks, teapots and plates of dried bread, Chaz sat by the shelter door to eat his tea, staring at the garden path. "If I was the beetle out there, I might be wiped out at any moment by a piece of shrapnel, but in here, I'm safe." It had all the pleasure of standing dry in a doorway, watching the rain make everything else wet. He thought of the steel and earth above him, and felt deliciously safe eating his chips. He nodded at Cousin Gordon's rifle. "Pity you didn't bring home something bigger. Then you and me could have a go at the bombers when they came." "No need," said Cousin Gordon, who liked playing the expert. "You can shoot down a bomber with a rifle. We're trained for it. We have to aim a hand's breadth in front of them to allow for that speed." "But bombers fly too high. Don't you believe it? Most bombers fly at 5,000 feet, which is a mile. This thing can kill at a mile." He stroked his rifle. "Can the German guns fire that far?" "Yeah, far further. Their Schmeisters can be right through the trunk of a tree." "What's a Schmeister?" "Machine gun." Chaz finished his chips thoughtfully, impaling 5 on the fork at once, and then ramming the lot into his mouth. "How often have I got to tell you?" said Mrs. McGill. "Cut them before you put them in your mouth." Around 10, the all clear went. Nothing had happened but 2 showers of rain, and long before the end, you could hear people chattering by their shelter doors. "What a waste of time," said Mrs. McGill. "I could have done the ironing. Good night, Gordon. Tell your mother I'll call on Friday." "Good night. I better get back while it's quiet." They heard his boots clink away, and sat waiting for another clink of boots up the path, and the clicking of a pushed bicycle. "Dad." "Hello, love." Mrs. McGill kissed her grimy husband on the cheek. Chaz had never seen his father come through the back door without her mother kissing him on the cheek. It must taste awfully sooty and oily. How much soot and oil she must have swallowed since she married him. "Here's your supper, nice and hot." Mr. McGill washing his face, but not his hands, but on his face. That came after eating. First things first, he didn't take the grimy boots off either. Mrs. McGill always put a copy of the Daily Express under his chair to save the carpet. "Nice having the raid over nearly for once. I could do with a good night's sleep in my own bed." "Don't count your chickens. There's still a yellow alert on." "But the all clear went." "That's the end of the red alert. The buggers are still hanging around about somewhere." "I think I'd better get my uniform on." Mr. McGill, forearm at the gas marks, knew such things. "But your tea will be spoiled." "Put it back in the oven." Mrs. McGill sniffed and picked up the Daily Express on the floor. Work boots might never be cleaned, but ARP boots were always spotless and shining. Mr. McGill, immaculate now, beret under his shoulder strap, sat down again to eat. Next morning, the lights went out. Next moment, then the cracks round the drawn blackout curtains lit up with successive streaks of light. Mr. McGill's plate went crashing to the floor. "Oh, those lovely sausages!" screamed his wife. "Get down, Hinny. Turn your face from the window. It's one of those sneak raiders." But it wasn't. Chaz, lying face down on the sofa, heard of the sound of many engines. "Run for it!" They ran through the front passage and pulled open the front door. It was like day outside. There were so many parachute flares falling, you could have seen a pin on the crazy paving path to the shelter. The insurance policies," screamed his mother, trying to turn back. His father stopped her brutally, and for a moment her parents wrestled like drunks in the front passage. "Run, for God's sake!" panting his father. The moment Chaz set foot on the path outside, the bombs began to scream down. Chaz thought his legs had stopped working for good. The black hole of the shelter door seemed to get further away instead of nearer. They said you never hear the bomb that hit you. But how could they know? Only the dead knew that, like the girl who'd worked in the screen grocers. Chaz saw that top half of his body still obscenely weighing out potatoes. Then he threw himself through the shelter door. He caught his knee in a corner of the bunk, and it was agony. Then his mother landed on top of him, knocking him flat, and he heard Dad's boots running, and he'd never heard them before. Then a crack like thunder, and another, and another, and another, and another. Great thunder boots walking steadily towards them. The next would certainly crush them, but the next never came. Only a sound of bricks falling, like coalmen tipping coal into the cellar, and glass breaking and breaking. His father drew down the heavy tarpaulin over the shelter door, and his mother lit the oil lamp with the third trembling match. Then she lit the candle under a plant pot that kept the shelter warm. "Did you shut the front door, love?" she said to his father. "I'm frightened someone will nip in and steal those insurance policies. And where's Mrs. Spaulding and Colin?" Chug, 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 chug. "The buggers is coming again," shouted Mr. McGill. "What's the gun? Where's the fighters?" Above the chugging came a kind of rhythmic, panting, screeching, a kind of dragging, hopping like a kangaroo in its death throes. It was even more like frightening than chugging, and it came right up to the shelter door. A body fell through. It was Mr. Spaulding. "Mrs. Spaulding." "Is she dead?" said Mrs. McGill. "No, but she's got her knickers round her ankles," said Mr. McGill. "Ah, had to hop all the way," gasped Mrs. Spaulding. "I was on the outside lav and I couldn't finish. The buggers blew the lav door off, and they've hit Mr. Rex cinema as well. Is there a spot of brandy?" "Ah, pull the chain, ma'am." It flushed alright. It was Colin, with a self-satisfied smirk on his face. "You'll get the Victoria Cross for that," said Chaz with a wild giggle. "Shut up, Charles. Have you not got no feelings?" Mum turned to Mrs. Spaulding, who'd crawled onto her bunk and was busy pulling up her knickers. "I'm sorry, love. We got run down the shelter so quick I left the brandy in case behind. I'm worried about the insurance too." Jack didn't shut the front door. "Go back then, get them, Jack." But the bombs had begun winding down again. Every time he heard one, Chaz stared hard at the shelter wall. Mr. McGill had painted it white, and set tiny bits of cork in the wet paint to absorb condensation. Chaz would start to count inside his head. When the counting reached 20, he would either be dead, or he would see little bits of cork fall off the shelter wall with a shock wave, and know he had survived. Till the next whistling started. It was a silly, pointless game, with no real magic in it, but it stopped you wanting to scream. His granda always said only one hit, and if you had your name on it, he'd see photographs of RAF blokes chalking names in the bombs. Did the Germans do that too? How would they know his name? Do they have lists of everyone who lived in England? Perhaps the Gestapo had. He must stop thinking like that, or he would scream. Make a fool of himself, like Mrs. Spaulding. Play another game, quick. Yes, there was another game. He was lying in a trench with chem and carrot juice. The black machine gun was in his hands, leaping, vibrating, spraying an orange fire at the black armors. And he was hitting them every time. They were blowing up. It was the crew who were screaming now, being blown in half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, this is a good game. Try as they might, the bombers could not reach him. He got them first, swept them away in the blast of the big black gun, sent them down into hell to burn. "Hey, cheer up, son. It might never happen." It was his father's voice, and he was staring at the white corky wall again, and for the moment the bombs had stopped. At dawn they climbed out stiffly. They were surprised to see their house still standing, and the rest of the houses in the square, and the next row, beyond the long back gardens, quite untouched, except there were two were simply gone. The ones on either side were windowless, had slates missing, but two were simply gone. "Ronnie Boyce lives there," said Chaz. He had given Ronnie Boyce a bloody nose 2 days ago. "Did live there," said his father. It was over quick. They can never have known what hit them. Fat Ronnie Boyce, with his shiny shoes, and a mum with asthma. Where was he now? Up in heaven, with a harp and a halo to go with his shiny boots? He hoped God wasn't too rough on him. He was a terrible thief, but probably being blown to bits was enough punishment for being a thief. "Chaz, lad," said his father very quiet. "I'm going to see if Len and Granda are right. Most of the stuff was dropped fell by the river last night. I want you to come with me." Chaz felt his stomach go heavy, as if he'd swallowed a live cannonball. Not Len and Granda too. He saw in his mind that neat house in Henry Street, with the white wheel for a gate, and the big white seashells in the garden, and the freshly painted flag staff where his granda ran up the Union Jack every morning and saluted it. "Don't take the bairn, Jack," said his mother, fingering her apron. "He's going," said his father grimly. "He's 14 now, and there might be errands to run, and clearing up to do." "He'd better wear his best suit, then. Don't be daft, woman, it's not a funeral yet. You might get it ruined for naught. Come on, son." They walked side by side down the road. Charles felt proud that his father needed him. It was a solemn occasion, a family occasion, an adult occasion. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He wondered how it would be. There might be Nana putting on the kettle, and Granda getting his morning coughing over. Everyone would tell bomb stories. Or there might be only a hole in the ground, like Ronnie Boyce's house. The whole world seemed broken in half. Nearby, the same old streets, women gossiping indoors, kids peering over walls, but above the familiar rooftops, billowing more smoke than he had ever seen, oily black smoke rolling over itself, trailing east to cover the rising sun, so that they walked from sunshine to shadow every minute. It looked like a photo of Chaz had seen on Dunkirk. In a way, he liked the smoke clouds. They were exciting, but was Nana's house making that smoke? They turned into Church Lane, blocked. Big red notices saying access prohibited and danger. Policeman controlling traffic. Men pulling crossbars off the back of lorries. A wriggling mass of white hose pipes, connected to hydrants that peed streams of water into the gutters like naughty boys. At the far end of the street, the red brick spire of Holy Saviour's was burning, flames licking from every window from top to bottom, joining into a smoke column that blew away east. Even the Germans across the North Sea was smelling the burning this morning, and laughing. His father was always asking a policeman which streets to the lower the town were open. The policeman was shaking his head. Chaz watched the church. God lived there. If even God wasn't safe from Hitler, who was? Why didn't God get Hitler for what he was doing? Why didn't he send a thunderbolt on Birchenstogen? Wasn't Hitler afraid to do such a thing to God? Charles had only spat in a church pew for a laugh, and walked in fear and trembling for a week afterwards. Where was God? As he watched, the spire seemed to shimmer in the heat. It was shimmering more and more. It was twisting like an outlaw shot in a western, all that great brick height. It made Charles feel dizzy. Even 100 yards away, he wanted to run. Great chunks of brickwork fell inwards into the church spire, like a jigsaw breaking up. The gilded weathercock on top tilted. Firemen were running in all directions, and then slowly, ever so slowly, the spire pounded downwards at the firemen. Like a leaping red lion, it landed in the street and leapt forwards again, with a mane of red brick dust, gasping for those runny legs. One man fell as he touched them. Two of his comrades picked him up and ran dragging him, without stopping, while the red line still pursued. And then it stopped, and Chaz became aware of the rumbling and shouting. A group gathered round the fallen fireman, lifting up so his blackened face stared at the heavens. They forced some stuff from a little brown bottle down his throat. He began to walk about, doubled up, coughing. "He's all right," said Mr. McGill. By God, he was lucky. He'd never be luckier. Come on. They walked to the next street. "I watched Holy Saviour's being built as a kid," said Mr. McGill. "Will he build it again? God knows. But did God know?" The next street was empty, normal, except for one policeman and a notice saying, "Unexploded bomb." But there was a little hole halfway down the street, surrounded by the kids' red and white barriers workmen use when they lay drain pipes. A cat was sniffing at the little hole. Chaz would have been worried about that cat, if he hadn't already been worrying about Nana. "It'll have to take its chance, that cat," said Mr. McGill. "I expect Seville Street will be open," said Chaz. It was the most important street in the town, with no less than 3 toy shops. But Seville Street no longer existed. It was just piles of bricks. The shops were piles of bricks, and the roadway were piles of bricks. There was a green lorry at the near end, marking the heavy rescue. A grimy man in a white tin hat marked "Or" was sitting on the tailboard with a mug of tea. The mug was white and shiny, but it had black finger marks all over it. "How do, Geordie?" said his father in a familiar sort of way. Heavens! The man was Uncle George, cousin Gordon's father. His face was black. He looked like a coal miner. Uncle George grimaced, showing perfect false teeth. "By gum," he said, "I thought I'd seen it all in the trenches by the last lot, but I seen an out like this before morning. There's bits of bairns under that. We'll be 3 days before we get the last of them out. How many dead? 27 so far, and 3 out alive. We had to use our bare hands, brick by brick. We were that frightened the whole lot would come down on top of us. He pulled a sandwich out of a screw of grease-proof paper with those same bare hands and began to eat it. How could he be so heartless? Your family all right, George? Aye, Rosie's gone to her mother's, and young Gordon to his girlfriend's at Monk's Eaton. Heard anything about Henry Street? They had it bad. Taking the young one down, or are you? He gave Chaz a look. Take care. He finished off the sandwich and licked his fingers. Rudyard Street's just about open now. Rudyard Street was no worse than what Chaz was used to. Slates off, ceiling down, windows gone. Every second house carried that silly notice. Business as usual. The photographer from the Garmouth Evening Gazette was busy. The nearer they approached the corner of Henry Street, the more Chaz's heart sank. Mr. McGill walked faster and faster, like a man going to have a fight. His steel heel caps rang louder and louder. Chaz found it harder and harder to breathe. They turned the corner. The wheel gate. The seashells. The flagpole were untouched. The Union Jack still flew, but the roof was a wooden, slateless skeleton, and the sky showed through the bedroom windows. We'll knock at the front door, says Dad. Stand beside me. And if I say shut your eyes, you bloody shut them quick. Understand? Chaz gulped and nodded. Mr. McGill knocked. Nana opened the door in her flowered pinafore. I knew you'd come. And the bairn. Do you see what Hitler and his Germans have done? Her blue eyes were snapping with fury, and her brawny arms folded up her large bosom. She always called Hitler, and spoke about him as if he were a personal enemy, a sneaky-minded neighbour who did sneaky things, like tipping refuse over your garden fence. If I could get hold of that bloody man, I'd strangle him. He should have been strangled at birth, snotty-nosed git. He'd really done for your granda, you know. He was going to brew some tea when it happened. It blew him all the way down the yard and split the back of his top coat from top to bottom. The buggers couldn't kill him at Capardio in 1918, but they've done for him this time. It's a crying shame he's past it. 20 years ago, he'd seen the beggars off. Riff-raff. What's Hitler more than a house painter? When's all said and done? All the time she was talking, Chaz had the absurd fancy that Hitler and the Germans were sitting down at breakfast about 2 streets away, and that's one attack by Nana and her famous throwing pin would settle the war once for all. Come in, if you can get it, said Nana. Granda was sitting in his armchair, warming his hands on a mug of tea. He was wearing furry brown slippers, striped pyjamas, and the split overcoat on a black beret with his 2 highly polished brass badges on it. One was his old regimental badge, a lab carrying a flag. The other was a German army badge, with the foreworn figure of a charging infantryman, and, lettering on no one could read. Granda pointed to that badge now. I knew a cop last night. I dreamt he came back for his badge. He was an Austrian soldier whom Granda had killed in a bayonet fight at Caporetto. Granda had taken the badge as trophy, and ever since had dreams that the dead man came back and mutely asked for his possession. Granda had lived in terror of that man for 25 years, yet he could never be persuaded to throw the badge away. There was a fire in the hearth, and the huge black kettle as usual. It began to boil now, and the lid began to rattle. Granda's teeth began to chatter, and Nana took the kettle off quickly. That lid always reminds him on the machine guns. Always reminds him. When it was too late, Grandma was lost in the old nightmare. Granda, his hands did strange things, pulling invisible ladders, settled together in front of his chest, as if he grasped the handle of some weapon. The index finger of his right hand tightened slowly on an invisible trigger, as his left eye closed, and his right squinted tight. Range 375, gun cocked. 200 rounds expended. 3 boxes of ammo in reserve, barrel cold, topping up with water. Spare barrel in reserve, half worn out, sir. The family watched. Suddenly he braced himself, shuffling his feet as if groping for a hold. His body tensed like a dog when it sees rabbits, and then he began to shake all over, as if the invisible gun was leaping almost beyond control. He's badly, said Nana. He hasn't done that for 10 years. He thinks they're coming for him. Oh my God, screamed Granda. Breech is jammed. Red cock. Discharge. Recock. His hands moved frantically. I'll mix one of my powders, said Nana. Come and give me a hand, Chaz. They were kept busy at Nana's for the rest of the day. There was no hope for the house. The walls were cracked. Even the roof could be put back on. On the walls they have collapsed under the weight. The most they could do was rescue all the bits and pieces: the glass paper with the view of Bulbinone in 1898, the great black Bible with the tarnished clasp, the bamboo table, and the pack them up for storage. Granda dozed in his chair. The Battle of Pareto, fought and lost. His Kitchener moustache trailing up over his open mouth. It was terribly black inside Grandma's mouth. Chas was fascinated by it. He kept staring at it, trying to see somewhere in the blackness. Had Granda fought his last battle? Would he die there and then among his bits and pieces? Sometimes his breathing went funny, but always recovered. Sometimes he moved it in his sleep. Charles was glad to go down to the corner shop for some more cardboard boxes. The corner shop was untouched, just fuller than usual. Only once did he allow himself to slip away and look at Granda's special treasure. In the coal shed, open to the sky now, on a nail in the wall behind the heap of coal, hung a helmet. It was thick with rust, and the twisted leather chin strap was as hard as iron. Right on top was a little bottle of candle grease. In the dugout at Carpeto, Granda had used the helmet as a candlestick. There was the original candle grease. He had never removed it. At 3 o'clock, men came in with a van from the furniture. It was going, Dad said, to the repository. Chas thought the word had a sinister sound, like mortuary or infirmary, but he didn't say so. At 3:10, a taxi for Nana and Granda arrived at the end of the road. Nana and Granda were going to live in the square. Chas had lost his bedroom. He'd sleep on the settee in the front room with the mysteries of chiming clock, wedding photographs, and mothballs. He didn't mind. He was much more interested in that helmet, if no one remembered it. Nana took a last look round her home. Pity about the coal in the coal house, she said. Some trash will steal it. Ghouls. You can't put coal into a repository, Hinny, said Mr. McGill crossly. He was tired, and he had a night shift to look forward to. Come on, that taxi's coming. Costing money. Come on, Chas. Can I walk home? I want to see what's happened to the church. His dad glanced at the watch. 2 full hours to bomber time, he nodded. See you don't go near that unexploded bomb. And be home by 5. Yes, Dad. The taxi drew away, leaving the house to Looters and to Chas. The Union Jack still flew. He took it down, took it to the coal house and wrapped his new treasure in it. Then he bounced along to a bunty's yard, skipping and mouthing Granda's remembered words. Range 375 cocked. 200 rounds expended. The Germans were about to face a new McGill with a new machine gun. You're mad, said Ken. No, I'm not. We've got Clogger now, said Chas. Even with Clogger, you're mad. There are usually 10 of them. Och, tripe, said Clogger. He never said much of anything except aye or no or och, tripe. Even to Masters, he was very silent and very hard. He was the junior team scrum half, and had once played a whole match after losing 2 front teeth, spitting blood thoughtfully before putting the ball in the scrum and scoring 2 tries. He was down from Scotland to stay with his auntie in the duration, because his mum was dead and his father was in the Navy. If he wanted to throw his weight about, he could have been the boss, a terror, but he was content to trail about after a chalice because he liked his stupid jokes, and had actually seen to smile at them twice. He had ginger hair and freckles, and always spat on his hand before he started any job, even a maths exercise. He knew about the gun, but he was safe. He never told anybody anything, even the time after the watch. From his watch. Look, said Chas, Sicky Nicky has something we need. We got to make it worth his while. Why do we have to build our camp in his garden? Because it's the right place, and because nobody ever does that anymore. Where else do you think that's private? Ken shrugged. He's beaten there. Right, so, what do we offer Nicky? What does he need? Alright, so we walk home with him, and Bodzer will kick your head in. We'll see. They were packing their school bags to go home. Across the classroom, alone as always, Nicky was packing his neat books, expensive drawing instruments into an expensive bag. Nearly new, but all scuffed mould. Next time of the ordeal had come. He looked pale, was already starting to pant. Outside, the wolf's pack was gathering, waiting to pull his bag from his hand. Screw his books over the pavement. Kick him when he when he bent down to pick them up. Pour gravel down his shirt. Pull his shoes off and throw them over the walls. Now, till Nicky was reduced to screaming blind hysterics, would he be allowed to creep home weeping. Every night it happened, regular as clockwork. The wolf pack never tired of it. Mornings, they didn't bother. They were sleepy or had homework worries, or were late, but the end of the day were always rounded off by an hour of torture. Charles looked at Nicky. The face was good-looking, with the pale girl's good look. The hair was curly and kept long. He had an operation scar on the side of his neck. But did that explain the constant bullying? Every kid has some peculiarity. Was fat or thin or had big ears. Charles had this twitted because he had thick lips and funny folds of skin on the back of his neck. So why was Nicky singled out? Chaz wondered how he himself felt about Nicky. He never touched him, but constantly teased him. Why? Chaz shrugged. That wasn't the job in hand. The job was to see that, for once, Nicky got home unscathed, but not too painlessly. That would look suspicious. Nicky sighed, closed his desk, and walked to the classroom door. Chaz, Kem, and Clogger closed in round him. "Good evening, Nickers, my dear chap," started Chaz. "How seems the world to you today?" Nicky looked frightened and hopeful at the same time. Anything was better than the wolf pack. They walked downstairs and into the yard, making remarks about Nicky's puny muscles, asking him how many times a day he went to the toilet and whether he wiped his bottom with his left hand or his right hand. Nicky blushed, but it wasn't as bad as being hit with school bags. The wolf gang was waiting just beyond the school gate, 9 of them, including a pack leader, Bodzer Brown. Chaz kept up his flow of rudeness, but watched Bodzer out of the corner of his eye. Bodzer was looking worried. He didn't like anything unusual. "Get away, Mr. Gill. He's ours," said Bodzer. "I beg your pardon, O mighty one, O star of the east, O moon of my delight. Your beauty is dazzling, especially your haircut. 4 eyes." There was a titter even among the wolf pack. Bodzer reddened. He looked uneasily at the Clogger. He didn't like the new confidence in Chaz's voice. "Get away, Miss McGill. I'm warning you. I've got no quarrel with you for now." "Oh, thank you, you worshipful lord," said Chaz, making low salams. "May Allah bless your luscious toenails. The smaller group moved past the larger one. So far, so good. They were on down Hockey's Lane, not hurrying. Hurrying would be fatal. The Wolfgang looked at Bodzer. Already their victim was past any previous torture place, getting nearer the main road where Atlas might interfere. "Pull him out," said Bodzer to 2 of his minions. The minions died for Nicky, who was beaten Chaz and Ken. He was between Chaz and Ken. The Clogger moved like greased lightning. Clogger, his steel toe cap, caught the first minion on the knee, leaving him writhing in the gutter. His fist caught the second full on the nose, drawing a satisfying stream of blood. The Wolfgang drew back and looked pointedly at Bodzer. It was up to him now, and the main road full of people who might telephone the school was only 40 yards away. "Get past there," shouted Bodzer. The Wolfgang streamed past, very clear of Clogger's boots, and blocked the end of the lane. Solid. "Told you so," said Kem ruefully. "Bloody fool, Chaz." But he doubled his fist. He was loyal. Bodzer stepped down in front. "Right, McGill. You've asked for this." His bluster was gone. He'd made up his mind, as a man might decide to nail a fence he watched sagging all winter. Chaz had made Nodge's dignity sag a bit lately. Now it was to be mended with Chaz's blood. Bodzer didn't even sound cruel or gloating as he did when he tortured Nicky, just determined. The time for talk, Chaz decided, was over. It was time for action. But what? Chaz was quick, and not so soft, but no one he knew could stand up long to the pounding of Bodzer's fists, except perhaps Clogger, and it wasn't Clogger's fight. He could dive head down for Bodzer's midriff, slide down and pinion Bodzer's legs and hope to push him over, but that would end inevitably with Bodzer sitting on his chest, begging his head against the pavement. Banging his head, Bodzer took off his gas mask haversack, then his school bag, his school razor raincoat, his blazer. He rolled up the sleeves slowly, one after the other. Chaz could think of nothing but to do likewise. He took off his gas mask case. It was not like the Bodzer's. It was a circular tin, twice the size of larger tins of beans and nearly as heavy. It sprung from a long, thin leather strap. And then the idea came to Chaz. It sent him aghast. Would his maim or be maimed now? He put the case down carefully and took off his school bag and coat and blazer, laying them in the fine gravel of the gutter. He came up with his fist clenched, ready. Bodger advanced without hurry. "Take your specs off," shouted Chaz. "I don't want your mum complaining to my dad if I break them." "Playing for time." "McGill," cheered Bodger, "that won't save you." But he took off his spectacles and handed them to a minion, and advanced again. Chaz saw the first blow coming, and he ducked it.